Hey guys, Brass Facts here. So it's been over 10 years that I've been shooting firearms, starting way back in 2013 with my Stag Arms, nothing fancy, Duracoated Clone Correct build. And all throughout, I've used, as you'd expect, a lot of magazines. Magazines are a wear item, something you use with the expectation of eventually throwing into the trash can. So because I have the level of autism that has me make an Excel sheet to play my video games optimally, I of course have an Excel sheet for tracking my magazines, well before I even considered making a channel. So that's the spiel today. We're going to look at this Excel sheet and look at 10 years of magazine usage. Before getting started, it's worth noting a couple things. All of these are absolutely self-evident. You'll be like, Brass Facts, why the hell are you telling me this? But I think it bears a refresher because I know people shut their brains off when watching a YouTube video, because I do it too, and you're going to take a lot of stuff at face value, and I want to caution you against that. Most of this video is more academic than practical. Why? The failure rate of a lot of these magazines are going to be measured in many thousands of rounds over many years. Because you're going to have a sort of division of both your training magazines and your air quotes duty magazines, you'll never really get to the point where your duty magazines are as worn as the magazines you see in this video. Personally for me, I sort of have an SOP of as I need more training mags, be it I lose them, they break, whatever I need to replace them, I pull from my duty mags and then go ahead and put them into my training mag pile and then take a brand new magazine, replace that magazine in my duty rotation. The duty mags themselves are really only getting about 100 to 500 rounds over their lifetime before becoming a training magazine. I use them to zero because they have my zeroed ammunition in them, be it for competition or sort of more advanced training drills like bounding with the boys to kind of just vet them and make sure I don't have a lemon in rotation. Beyond that, that's about it. Let's start with the first set of retired magazines. These are all Gen 2 PMAGs. We're doing this live, so this is going to be real yappy. This might be one you need to put on in the car ride. Although we got these awesome ancient magazines in front of you, so maybe the visuals are going to be cool. I got these when I started shooting. I think they probably came with the Stag Arms gun that I had at the time. And then I retired them in 2020. They all exhibit the exact same issue in that they're both somewhat unreliable in what I would call edge case guns. They also had a secondary issue where these mag catches are sort of being rounded out from a shitload of dry fire. Because I used to be a poor shit and I used to do way more dry fire and maybe playing with my guns while watching YouTube videos. With certain suppressed setups, these mags would self-eject on full magazines with aftermarket magazine releases, specifically the Troy Ambi mag releases. So they all got retired. Skipping forward, number 6, similar issue, so whatever. And we can kind of get to our first interesting thing, which is going to be number 8. I don't have number 8 anymore. I think it just got thrown away because at the time, 2021, I was still not of the mindset that I would actually be making this kind of video. So if a magazine was damaged, why would I bother keeping it? It can't be reconstituted. So I threw it in the trash. Fortunately, I do have a picture of it. As you can see, we got some pretty grotesque spine cracking on this thing, making it mostly non-usable. I think in theory you could mash the magazine into the gun and it would kind of squish the feed lips or the entire magazine back together, but obviously it was no goods because if it was in your plate carrier, it's just going to drop magazines into your pouch or whatever. If you look very carefully, you can see it's one of these types of Gen 2 magazines when they still had the patent pending on it. So, most of my Gen 2 PMAGs are now out of the training rotation. I think this is in contrast to the general consensus that Gen 2 PMAGs are on par with Gen 3 PMAGs, which I really just don't think is the case. They're less reliable and more prone to cracking and breakage, especially once they begin to wear out, which to be sure is not a spring-related failure. But as I mentioned earlier, we have to be sure to contextualize this conversation within the actual time frames here. Even these shorter lifespan Gen 2s that you've seen on this list are lasting a good bit of time before I find them problematic. So really, when you consider that you can buy these for $9.99 or even sometimes $7.99 in bulk, it's more than made up by pricing, which makes these actually a really good fit to stack deep for mag ban installation or in general preparedness. Granted, I've mostly switched to waiting for Gen 3 PMAGs to go on sale and just buying those instead, as they're much more reliable for me. In fact, I still have a ton of Gen 3 PMAGs in the training rotation and none of them have exhibited issues. Not to spoil the whole video, I'd say the Gen 3 PMAGs are probably the single most reliable and consistent, long-lasting type of magazines across all of the categories. But I even find myself moving away from these because I find them somewhat cumbersome with their huge form factor, and the over-insertion tab does not play well with a lot of my nylon gear and tends to chew up a lot of the elastic sort of mag pouches that I have. So I don't really use these as much as I used to.
Boom! Next up, metal magazines. These are my Blackout metal magazines that I bought fairly early on, 2015, and then I would retire them in the same batch when I kind of did a big clearing of those last magazines you just seen. They look so cool. I think these are stainless steel style ones. They're a little heavier. They weren't reliable at all. I can't really see any damage on these. I looked them over before starting the video, and there's no visible damage to these like we'll see with a lot of other magazines coming up. Okay, next up, Lancer magazines, and why I've generally had a pretty negative opinion about Lancer magazines. I bought both of these in 2016, which is where I was really kind of starting to get serious about shooting, and both of them kind of let me down. The first of which was just unreliable. It would tend to shoot bullets into the receiver when you inserted it on an empty magazine. I actually stuck with it because until recently I was very stingy with replacing magazines because, I don't know, they're kind of expensive, and I was of the mindset that, oh, you can practice malfunction reloads and all that stuff, which, I'm pretty good at malfunction clearing at this point, so, maybe it paid out. You can actually see the footage where I lose it. The next time I was going to go back, I would be like, oh, I'll just go get it the next time I go up there. Unfortunately, the next time I went up there, I broke my Jeep and we didn't quite get to that altitude, so it's just forever lost up there. The second one I don't have, unfortunately, and that one had a crack. Next up is just a swath of metal magazines. Blam. So slightly out of order. Let's zoom it back out. Metal magazines. These are all generally OK Industry magazines, and they are very reliable until they're not. So we're just going to kind of go through these. What does this one say? Crushed spine doesn't feed last round. Yeah, so because the spine is so bowed inward, I don't know why it'll do this, right? So this magazine, obviously no bueno, and that also impacts feed reliability. Then we got another one here, crushed spine. This seems to be a reoccurring issue with these things. You can see right here, this spine side is crushed inboard. This one is labeled as also having reliability issues. Damaged feed, it says damaged feed lips. And then this guy, actually this one was quite reliable. My friend Ryan just has a kablooey. Oh, here's another fun one. I had a second kablooey. COVID and its effect on ammunition has been disastrous for the human race because ammunition quality has just gone downhill. This one was X-Tac, which is interesting because there's a lot of people in this time frame that had issues with X-Tacs exploding in their guns.
Jesus! Okay, let's sum up metal magazines. They, like Gen 2, Gen 3 PMAGs, are quite reliable if you run quality magazines. I personally am a fan of the OK Industry ones, though they're no longer produced, so I've been testing Duramags, which are actually doing approximately on par with the OK Industries, in fact outlasting the majority of the OK Industry ones, though I admit I find their glossy finish somewhat annoying. It's pretty self-evident with how mine have lasted. Even compared to the Gen 2 PMAGs, these don't really last that long in a training environment, with only 2 Duramags and 2 OK Industry mags surviving from the mass introduction of these things when I bought a huge bulk order in 2022/23. This ties back to my, I think the third time here now, my philosophy here. Magazines are a wear item, and if a magazine can survive 3 or 5 years, that's really more secondary to me versus what they actually bring to the table, and metal magazines bring compatibility with my nylon gear, so I personally use them here anyway. But I wasn't always like this. 2014 Brock would have massively preferred magazines that would have lasted a little longer than 2, maybe 3 years. Also, a second point to note. With the Gen 2 PMAGs, at least a good chunk of them, when they failed pretty catastrophically, right? They cracked, they broke, because ironically, PMAGs, or plastic magazines, tend to be a lot more brittle due to the composite material being used and crack when broken. Metal mags, on the other hand, are actually quite ductile or tend to have plastic deformation, and when they break, it's not at all obvious. And there'll be generally 1 to 2 months of just usage where I'm just experiencing malfunctions at an ever-increasing rate, and I kind of just chalk it up to, maybe the gun I'm reviewing is having issues, and then I look very closely at the training mag, and I'm like, oh, it's bent half a millimeter out of spec, and that has been causing all my issues. So keep that in mind.
Fucking kidding me? Magpul T-Mags, when these came out, they were very, how do we call it? Divisive, right? A lot of people were shitting on these mags, probably rightfully so, because it seems like the first batch was really bad. But this is what I would consider probably the second batch in or so. I bought these on December of 2024. As of making this video, it's basically July 1st. So we've had them for about 6 months, really only about 4 months of hard use, which isn't very much. They've had about 7,000 rounds between them, so just over 1,000 rounds per magazine. I would consider these lower quality in terms of feed reliability than both Gen 2 PMAGs and Gen 3 PMAGs. When it is very cold, this happened a number of times, and unfortunately winter's over, so I can't do more testing on that, but these will stay in rotation, so we'll figure it out. On magazine insert, they will sometimes pop a round out, and I'll roll a little bit of footage in that. Unfortunately, it's all under night vision because wintertime is our night vision time because it sunsets very early. And it fucks up like that. In the summer, I have had no such issues, so I think it might be a temperature thing as the plastic maybe gets brittle. I don't know, it's hard to say. I also haven't used these as much as I probably should before passing judgment on that, so keep that in mind. But I would say these are decent reliability, but not on the same tier as we've once again had with the Gen 2 PMAGs and the Gen 3 PMAGs. In terms of failure wear, these look great. They're very stiff and not nearly as squishy as the Lancers. But they also don't have the metal reinforcing up here. So time will tell if these behave a lot like the Gen 2 PMAGs where they like to crack right here or right here. So this is my 300 Blackout training mag system. So I have dedicated 300 Blackout magazines. These are 300 Blackout branded, or designed magazines. Same with the Magpul ones. And they've had varying level of success. I find that the Magpul PMAGs tend to be a little bit more reliable. Now, I say that with the caveat of the Magpul magazines worked with a failing gun, while the Lancers didn't work with a failing gun.
Oh, malfunction! These fucking Lancers suck ass! Fuck you! Malfunction! No longer friends with Lancer. New friend, PMAG. It's working.
On top of that, one of these is, where is it? One of these is just not reliable at all. You can see this one's basically brand new compared to the others, and it's just not reliable at all, right? This one doesn't work. Even on, I've pulled it back out of storage once I had my PWS fixed and with my Wolfpack gun, and it's just not very reliable. So this guy's just out of rotation. I have question marks because I don't know why it's not unreliable. It's smooth, right? It's clean. I don't know what's wrong with this one. Secondly, this one had a crack form right here. And obviously this is no good because Lancers are already prone to wanting to a round into the chamber on a full mag insert. I wouldn't say it happens all the time. In fact, it happens quite rarely, but it happens more often with Lancers, I believe. And now that it's cracked, obviously it's no good because it's going to do it every time. Outside of that, the remaining Lancers have been good. So my remaining 3 Lancers in rotation have been quite good, and I've been doing the majority of my 300 Blackout review testing with it. Then we have my PMAGs, and they've been doing exceptionally well.
So, while not necessarily bad magazines, my opinion with Lancers, especially with their increased price tag, is not really worth it over standard magazines if you want to min-max your performance, reliability, and more, which generally is worth chasing. Really, the only upside, in my opinion, is that they are a plastic magazine that is translucent, but they have the form factor of metal magazines. They're not nearly as built up as the PMAGs. The metal reinforced feed lips help. Sure, you're not going to have rear spine cracking or feed lip cracking, but just due to how it's designed, you can still very much have forward spine cracking, and it happened twice out of my very limited sample set. And because the upper portion of the magazine is metal, we also have the plastic deformation that occurs with metal magazines with usage over time, making these the second lowest lifespan magazine on average behind all those metal mags I showed you.
Bottom right.
Bottom right.
I think you're way high.
Ah, I did it again! Yeah, it's those Lancers. They
It's
don't
the
fucking
Lancers.
work.
USA! USA!
Next up, AR-10 magazines. These don't get nearly as much usage because AR-10s to me are mostly a precision platform nowadays. When I say AR-10s, I'm semi-automatic large frame AR-15 style guns. These are fairly low round count. I mean, this is my #1 mag and it's, you know, I mean, look at that. That's not a heavily used magazine. But I've actually found that AR-10 magazines don't quite hold up to the same degree that the regular PMAGs tend to hold up to. So 1, 2, 6, and 5, these guys are all behaving quite well. However, #4 is just heinously unreliable. So you probably see a lot of footage of me shooting the 6.5 Creedmoor gun, and there's constantly reliability issues, and that's this guy right here. The second failure point was this guy right here. The feed lip is damaged, so now the magazine feed lips are bowing apart. Okay, so that actually sums up the majority of my large, you know, two-handed guns, rifles, whatever you want to call it. But I want to quickly touch on sort of just speed run other magazine types. Glock PMAGs, they fucking suck. I don't know how to say it. Not all of these are necessarily unreliable. I mean, this one probably is unreliable. But in very quick order, I'd say about 1 to 2 years of just like low-level intermediate shooting, these things get very unreliable very quickly. And it's at the point where I'm not talking about, you know, like my Lancers or my Gen 2 PMAGs from earlier, where I'll have a failure, you know, once every 3 drills with these things or whatever it ends up being. These things are failing like 5 times a magazine. And I think the issue is just like plastic on plastic already kind of doesn't work nearly as well as plastic on metal, just due to the coefficient of friction. But then with handguns, just due to how stiffly they're stacked in there, it begins to exhibit far more issues. Speaking of just terrible, terrible expensive magazines, the entire B&T insistence on using these sort of stick magazines, these are not good. I would say on average these last 1,000 rounds or less, but you could probably pretty confidently say they last about 600 rounds or less before they start exhibiting feeding issues. These already are kind of suspect when it comes to feeding hollow points. They just don't present them at the right angle, and they'll just go straight first into the feed ramps. If they're not behaving right, they'll kind of go down just due to how this thing likes to bind and tilt. And as they begin to wear out, they just exhibit a lot of problems. I know this because I own a lot of these fucking things. And all of them are exhibiting issues. I can also talk AK PMAG magazines that tend to work okay, but very often fail to chamber the last round. Not nearly as big of a deal because with an AK you're always going to get a click on an empty magazine. So if you're down 1 round, I guess, whatever. But yeah, I'm not nearly as big of a fan of these when you could just buy these guys right here, the Bulgarians. Thanks for the tip, a regular guy. These are much nicer.
Alright, that's the video. I'm really hungry and want to go eat, so pretend I did all the outro stuff. Like and subscribe, stuff, whatever. Bye.
Oh, big stick. You have to start at the end every time.